what's in an eyeglass cleaner, because you don't have to buy it, really.
Yeah.
Right?
I know it's out. You can use alcohol to clean like whiteboards also.
I use the chamois, the little chamois.
Yeah.
Don't you?
On my personal computer, I spray, I have a bottle, a spray bottle that I have alcohol in. And, you know, ice it over on lunch. And it hasn't eaten anything up yet.
Big crowd tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I was just trying to think, Jim and Matt are both out.
Mike sent an email half hour ago asking for going. Said we were, so I just thought that would mean he was coming.
Listen, you said that we do have all the ratings on here?
Is that the one that ProStack did, or?
No, for our personal.
Yes.
They're on there.
Why can't I see? Oh, okay, I got you.
Not
Yep, I
everybody
see 'em.
ranked.
I see 'em.
Everybody, some people said sort of they were fine
Yep.
with the way it was.
Ashley, do you, as a matter of course, send ProStack minutes to OSAC?
Not typically,
Yeah, I really would recommend to do that. You can do the other two.
but I did send them the trails notes.
Yeah.
Just their draft to help, to start
Well, in
collaboration.
their last minutes, they also had no opinion on the Davidson Mesa request that Louisville OSAC made. But our ProStack had an opinion on it, and I think you guys should be aware of.
They were against it, correct?
I don't know, I can't really remember.
Can you
If
pull
it
them
would-
up,
if it-
Allison?
Yeah, but you can send it to me, but, and I would also recommend that if there's an interested party who wants to make the ProStack meetings and can make them, to sit in on the ProStack meetings. As much cross-pollination as we have, I think it would be a good deal.
I had a conversation with their chair at the open house, the last open house, and he was saying that they didn't see the real benefit of putting a trail right there and how it would really help Superior residents. He said he completely understood how that helps Louisville residents get into Superior, but there's really not a lot of Superior citizens that live right there. It probably wouldn't be used by Superior, and that's why they were going to go against it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was their formal opinion. I think that's just...
Yeah, but it seems to me that if we're into regionality of trail systems,
Mhm.
I was going to say, but I've had at least 3 citizens at various events tell me they want
right.
connectivity up to
Davidson Mesa.
Davidson
I
Mesa.
think it makes a lot of sense.
It's kind of illogical not to connect at all,
Mhm.
Yeah.
really. It's all Boulder County. Why would we try to inhibit that?
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the trustees are having a meeting with BOCO next
Oh,
Monday.
great.
A dinner meeting with BOCO, and we're going to bring that up.
Okay.
Because the biggest problem with that connection is safety over Marshall Road. And it's really BOCO land, it's not Superior. And so if we can get BOCO to partner,
Yep. That
Why
would be,
not do it?
that would be key.
So we should officially start though. 'Cause it's 6:35. This is Patricia Dunham, Chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee, calling meeting to order at 6:34, Wednesday, June 10th. Ken, do you want, and Tracy?
Ken Lish, Vice Chair.
Tracy Collar, committee member.
Sandy Pennington.
Trustee liaison. Allison James, staff liaison. Our trustee staff liaison.
Trustees, trustees.
Okay. There's no public in the room, so no public comment. I guess we'll move on to agenda item number 3, review and discussion of the 5 years trail plan. Note, until we get 2 more members in the room, we don't have a quorum to vote. So in front of us is all of the combined trails plans that we had put together. So we can start looking at that.
So if I may say, refresh my memory, are we going to have someone come speak about why these were put in the order they were put, and et cetera, or are we just going to try to go forward and decide ourselves what we want to do?
I think at this point, we have to at least put forth our recommendations for the coming year.
Okay.
Go forward.
Can I ask a question about ProStack's rankings? Allison, in that email you sent us, it said that for numbers 6, 10, and 17, they're waiting on, or there has to be some coordination with Boulder. Does that mean that those really shouldn't move? Like, has that coordination already happened and these are set in stone, or that's just, it will need to be coordinated?
Right, it just identifies the trails that are going to require coordination. It doesn't necessarily mean that they would have to be ranked lower or higher.
Okay, so coordination hasn't happened and we're not going to set anybody else off if we reckon, all right. Also on theirs, it said number 17 required, actually, no, I'm guessing that's number 16, never mind.
So do we think the best way to go through this is just go down and, using our 2014 rankings, decide if we want to keep something at number 1 or keep it on the list or move things up? How do we want to best move these?
That's a good question.
Because I'm looking at number 1, and this one, the town has done preliminary design on this trail, but everyone on our committee that chose a different ranking actually moved it further down, out to what would probably correspond to years 2017, 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there. So I'm not feeling that folks are really wanting that to remain at number 1.
Is this the top of 2014?
Yes, this was at the top of 2014. Jill, if you just want to put your mic and introduce yourself. Isn't this your last meeting?
I think it's effective May.
Well, I knew that National Trails Day was the last event.
It was like the last event, but I think technically, I'm here by the vote.
Well, we're going to celebrate anyway.
Yeah, we're still planning.
And it looks like you have a quorum. I'd skip that. I was like thinking about it, and I remember that Margaret just went to that.
So with our two members arriving, we now have quorum. If you guys will just introduce yourselves or just say.
Jill Kenny.
Sean Samuelson.
We're going through, in front of you, you have our ranking, the sheet that we did that we were ranking our trail recommendations for the 5-year trail. And we were just discussing on number 1 that many of our rankings have pushed that down a number of years, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to do this, if we just want to go by the rank that was on on 2014 and then just move them down if they move or move them up. That's fine.
So this is just a suggestion, you can veto it very quickly if you want. When I went through them myself, I looked at all of them and read all of them and then picked what I thought was the top priority and then went down from there. I don't know how to look at number 1 and decide what number it's going to be just out of the blue, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if you have really any suggestions, because it's kind of a confusing process.
I agree. I think we ought to look at which one is number 1 first, which one's number 2, and then just rank order down.
Okay.
Does that work?
That works fine. We can do it that way. I'm just looking down because a lot of people picked the installed combination hard-soft north of Shamrock Drive, east of 88th with wildlife viewing area for Hodgkins Harris Reservoir. So a number of people ranked that as number 1. We have a couple of people who ranked that differently. do we want to have a discussion about it, or do we feel that majority ranked it as number one and we should just move it up and move on?
How about a discussion with those who are here?
Yes.
Can I ask one other question? As far as these ones that are for they're currently 2015, and we're 2014 on the last one. Is there already, like, planning and resources allocated in the town to get this stuff moving? Like, are there already costs that have been incurred for these at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, like, because of flood mitigation,
This all got pushed?
they all got pushed off.
Okay. Well, I guess to kick off the conversation for that one, I rated it number one just because it was already up there on our plans to be done that year. It's something that we as a committee have been working on to get the reservoir back up and running and give people an opportunity to start using it in a more effective way that they haven't been able to over the past several years.
Ken, I'm good with that. The other one, though, that I would say is that second one, that next one, install soft trail parallel McCaslin. So many people ranked it in their very highest, like it, Sean and Matt both. So to me, it could be either one. And I also see a strong need for that soft trail parallel to McCaslin, just because so many people end up walking down the sides and the shoulders of McCaslin, so.
Right, so the reason I ranked, I guess, the number 3 trail lower than, number 4 trail? Is that what we're looking at? Yeah. It's because when I'm on trails, I'm usually heading west. I'm heading toward the mountains, and I think a lot of people are doing that. Now, granted, I'm already starting farther west from where I live, so the number 3 trail, it's not that big a trail, so, I mean, from a cost perspective, it's a lot less than the number 4 trail, obviously, but I think the number of people that might use number 4 would be a lot higher, thus the higher priority, the higher traffic, higher volume. In general, the way I rated these was I always rated the ones farthest west first, higher priority than the ones farther east, unless they were low budget amount or short trails or something, low-hanging fruit kind of thing. That's generally how I ranked.
So I could make a proposal that maybe we accept that trail number 3 as our first one because it is low cost. Several people ranked it top, and then make our second priority be trail number 4, just based on the feedback and cost.
Sure, I second that.
I
Makes
agree.
sense to me.
Okay. So we'll move, is that okay with you? All right, so number 4 will be 1. Number 3 will be 1, number 4 will now be 2. And then just looking down
Number 11 looks like the next one with the most consensus for,
moving up.
yeah.
So construct a soft trail from High Plains Drive at Ridge Entrance.
I could even move that up to 1, but I'll leave it at 3. I'm good.
So we're all good with that being number 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Let's see.
What's the next?
Maybe number 7? Is that the next with the lowest?
Could be.
Yeah, I think the number 7, the extend soft surface trail connection along the west side of McCaslin to Rock Creek Neighborhood Trail connection by Key Building seems to be the next highest ranked on our list.
That only seems sensible because if we did those other two, then it would be a full path.
Yeah.
I agree.
And number 5, now we're starting to get into the less.
We are,
Yeah, not as obvious anymore.
a little messy.
It looks like Possibly the single tree to Cold Creek Regional might be next.
Which number? Number 12, yeah.
It's an expensive trail.
Number 12.
Yeah. It also requires Town of Superior work, that's correct, Allison? The single tree?
It looks like we already have that area, so it's already Town of Superior
Space.
right away.
Right away, okay. Okay. So we could move that to number 5. Do people agree with that, the single tree to be our fifth?
Number 12?
Yeah, number 12.
Yeah.
I agree.
So this is kind of going along the way I was thinking.
Yeah.
Everything that's along McCaslin and west is highest priority, except for the low-hanging fruit.
Okay. And then, number you have to come to the mic. You have to come up to the mic. So we have a comment from the public.
Sharon Tedeschi, 2070 Shamrock Drive. Quick question on number 12. That is going to tie in probably with the development of the Rogers property. And I wonder if we could even try to make a recommendation to the trustees to drive that as part of the development package, get the developer with that one.
But when is that supposed to happen is the question. I mean, we could be waiting a long time. Do we want to wait that long to put that trail in? Again, remember, a lot of these trails along McCaslin, there's a lot of people on Trails Day that mention that they're from Louisville, they can't wait for the underpass to get through, and I'm thinking, well, it'd be great if we actually had our trails along McCaslin also connect in, so they have access to all of our trails as well. So I'm not sure we want to wait. I mean, look at Town Center and how much slower that's been going. I'm thinking that property also.
I could see them developing that one sooner.
Oh, really?
Because it's residential. I don't know if they've put anything forth, but they're in greater control of what they do right there than they are in Town Center. And feel free to correct me also, understanding, but I think they just bought that and it's going to be residential, it's already plotted and zoned. Have they brought anything forth on that?
I'm still seeing cows over there, so I don't know.
Cindy, they haven't brought forth Rogers development.
Oh, no, I think Rogers is ways off.
So I think we can put it as number 5, and I agree with you that I think people want to get to the west in those sort of open space areas. Number 6.
To me, it looks like it's number 2, on the front page.
But isn't number 2 being developed by Calamonte?
Construct soft trail west of Calmonte from
Yes,
Colton Road.
Calmonte is building that trail.
So is that coming off of our list then as something we should even be looking at? If they've taken it over and they're providing the resources?
I guess that's up to the group. They are providing the resources. I mean, it's a high priority for you. Be either one.
Or do we say that they're providing the resources, move it up the list and say just do it?
When
Or just leave it at number
When are they
6?
providing the resources? They may be providing the resources with Phase 2, which won't start until the completion of Phase 1, the patio home part of it. Which number are we looking at?
We're looking at number 2.
South of Colton?
I would assume with them providing the resources, I think that we don't
I think it would have to come off of ours.
come off or go down to the bottom, and they would provide the resources when, so I think we'll move
Can we
that
take
one
off
down.
the number and just keep it?
Yeah.
Are we sure that we're talking about the same trails here? So in the Pro Stack one, they have a number 2, and it says new number 2, and that's the one that lines up with the one that Calmonte is building. That's described as the Richmond access connection from sidewalk along Colton to hard surface trail near the Richmond property. What we're looking at on our list,
That's 5 on our list.
Yes.
so is Calmonte building number 5 then on our list?
That wouldn't make any sense.
That's not the problem.
Okay, so there's just a misconception.
Number 5 is land owned by the town, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's on ProStax ranking.
Right.
So that's their newest ranking. So the numbers got shuffled
Oh,
around.
okay.
Gotcha, okay.
Gotcha. So we just need to look at our old one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just look at the description to...
And tie it to our old,
Yeah.
instead of tying it to ProStax.
Yeah.
Makes more sense. Gotcha.
So we're agreeing that we're just going to take off number 2 off of our list, sort of just
Yeah.
not rank it at this point.
Right, just put a little asterisk next to it.
So then I would look and say that our number 6 is somewhere between 6 and 8
So,
with people that
to step back and,
or 15.
I say to look at what we've done so far, so we've kind of built all the way across McCaslin, and if number 2 is going to be taken care of by Calmonte, to finish out that stretch, the only remaining piece is trail number 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Trail number 1.
So just from a systematic perspective, that might make more sense.
I would agree.
Yep, okay, so yep, looking at the map, then we've covered
So number 1 is number
6.
6.
Yep.
And then would number 4 be number 7, since it would connect in to number 1?
Which one?
Number 4 is number 2.
This is now 2.
Oh, there's 2 4s on here. I'm sorry. There's a 4 below and there's a 4 above. 4 south and a 4 north. I was referring to 4 south, south of Colton.
Can you go over the change, the 1 through 6 now for me?
Number 3, number 4, number 11, number 7, number 12. Sorry. Marlene is writing down.
So priority number 1 is number 3, trail number 3.
Got it?
Priority number 2 is trail number 4.
Got it.
Priority number 3 is trail number 11. Priority number 4 is trail 7. Priority number 5 is trail 12. Priority number 6 is trail 1. And then we are working on priority 7.
Priority 7 and
And I
trying to
was
figure
referring
out
to the second number 4, 4 south. I don't know.
which number is that. It's,
It's below 2,
It's down,
below the 2 trail.
it's down here, Sandy, but we don't know.
So what number is that actually supposed to be?
hold on.
I'm guessing it's supposed to be number 6, because I don't see a 6 on this.
Right, else we don't see it.
No, we don't have an 8 either.
Well, one of them's cut off on the side,
Okay.
but we don't know which one.
It's whatever's east, right,
Yeah.
the most east. I think it's number 9.
4, that's, okay.
I think it's number 9 because I think it's construct
Yep.
soft trail north of El Dorado, K8 from Indiana to McCaslin.
Oh, yep.
You're right, I've got the complete one and it's 9.
Yeah.
So 4 is actually 9. Okay.
So you're proposing number 9?
Priority 7.
There was one that looked like it might have ranked higher, though, which is 8. Sagamore, construct soft trail along west boundary between trail entrance and Coal Creek Drive.
So that's up here. Should be over here, right? Is it this one? This is Sagamore.
Right, so I think that was the one that Matt Morris was suggesting we did not, his whole neighborhood was against developing because they didn't want to trail directly behind their homes over there with a lot of people passing by them, or dust, or I don't remember the reasoning behind it, but.
But that's the one that's going to have to connect to go under to Louisville, right? That is our access to...
No, there was a suggestion that a separate trail be connected directly from that Louisville connector into the Boulder County space that would not intersect our trails at
But I
all.
thought there were private homes in that area.
No, there's a rite of passage, I think.
Oh.
After, on the other side of those homes, on the Superior line, I forget, is it water rights, or I don't know what it is. There's some kind of easement in that area, I believe, when I looked on the map.
Well, the ditch company owns, I guess, a certain amount past the back fences, and we have a short area between the fences and the ditch company, and then it's Boulder County.
That's right. Yeah, it's Boulder County thereafter, so we only have a narrow corridor there.
So I think what I was suggesting was that that would be under Boulder County's negotiating with them to have a trail from there.
Well, I mean, depending on what the committee would like to do, it would either be on Superior's area between the fence and the ditch company, or
I remember that.
on the other side with Boulder County.
Where is it shown on this map?
It's actually off this map. This map is, we need to shrink it.
Tracy has a phone on right here.
8 is the one they're talking about.
Yeah, right behind the house.
Yeah, so 8 doesn't actually connect all of the
Well,
houses, it looks like.
they're-
15, I think, is the one that...
It sure would be helpful to have this up on the big screen. Do we have it so we can point it with a laser? So we're all looking at the same thing?
You know which one I'm talking about, right, Allison? There we go.
Yes, perfect.
Great. And so Allison, if you have a laser or Trish or somebody, in these boxes is a light right in front of you. That cigar box looking thing. And Allison, behind you, the far switch, you can turn the light off so you get your,
So I can see it.
yeah, the left switch.
Oh, thank you.
All right, that's the line.
And then Allison can hone in on that.
Yeah, I'm getting this weird.
So
If you do the other, there's a little thing, flip it to the other, and then you get the dot.
So I would say, I would agree with Sean. I think we should finish out this one, kind of that whole El Dorado, McCaslin.
Which is, isn't that 12 and 7? And
Yeah. I don't think, I think we're still going to have to, at some point in time, do the one behind Sagamore. Because otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to have like a special area that there's no trail connection. It doesn't have to be the priority, but I think at some point in time.
So just to bring up, so in that conversation that we had via email where Matt was against that trail, and his reasons were mostly due to privacy issues because they have the west-facing windows, so they have the great mountain views and everything, and adding a trail right there cuts down on their privacy. But I heard from a lot of those residents also that they feel more neglected from the town because there's no real trail access out of there. Even though Single Tree kind of runs behind the property, you have to actually leave the Sagamore area, come out, go down Coal Creek, and then you can get onto the trail. So I've, being over there and talking to people, a lot of them were absolutely, begging for some type of connection out of Sagamore into the trails that would, kind of common sense, be like, all right, they're right there, why can't we just get on them from our neighborhood? So I completely understand Matt's concerns, and they're definitely valid. I think where we had started to go, and our conversation just died, was that that might not be the best design for the trail. I think what we're ultimately saying might have made more sense was, so there's the black sidewalk that kind of splits Sagamore in half, right at the 15. Yeah, right at the 15 and 8 junction, right where those connect. If that were to just scoot out that way, that would give the Sagamore folks what they want in the trail access, and that would remain pretty much private for all those guys. So I don't know if I don't know anything about the land back there and what we have rights to or anything like that.
We don't, that's all Boulder County right behind there, isn't it?
And privately owned property.
And
It's
privately
not
owned.
just Boulder
Yeah, that's right.
County.
It's
I mean, when we
strips of
looked
private.
at it, there's a number of things to go over.
So that's one of those, you've got the entire neighborhood that would really love it, and then you have a entire side of the street that is very, very, very against it.
Well, I also think one of my thoughts when I look at that area, it's also a place that a social trail could just pop up because people want to get out to.
So right now, you can't because there's actually barbed wire fence that stops that from happening. There's two sets of fences, and that's why social trails haven't actually started over there. So it's pretty cut off for the time being.
Okay.
We started talking about those trails right after there was that proposal of the retirement community that would go in that area and the assisted living and all of that.
Which is over to the north.
Right, it
there.
would be further
Right
up.
there.
But I don't know, it seems like that would be nice for them. However, we can't really think of everyone, of course.
Well, I mean, there's alternatives. I mean, you can always place something on the edge of these neighborhoods. You know, you can have an inlet here, and you can have an inlet at the top, so both north and south, instead of in the middle along the back edge, and then create it from there. But again, if you want to just go straight out, then you're getting into a whole
not
other.
possible.
I mean, you have to get into negotiating with Boulder County then.
So it looks like with with the retirement home, with some of the things, that it would definitely be an area that we would want to engage the public in talking about both the neighborhood and other town residents who want those trail connections. So do we just move them down then as far as our priority and move something up?
I would suggest we do that and maybe finish out that other area we were talking about.
Like south here?
That would
yeah.
give us a year or two to get feedback from the entire community because, you know, everywhere in Superior, there are trails behind people's houses, so
Yeah.
I don't think it's nothing unique.
Yeah, the south side all along level 3, I mean, there is right along their fence lines.
Exactly.
So, it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, and I would say, you know, looking at this, you know, the town, the way that this is broken down in the past, we're really looking at 3 trails per year, give or take, given the cost. So we're already out to 2017 at this point, I would think. Do we need the lights, or I should say, I need the lights?
So there is one thing that's not on this map that I brought up before, is the fact that we need a connector from the future trailhead that was
Shan Shan.
Shan Shan, and that's not on this map. And I think that is a great need, depending on when we actually implement that as a trailhead. If we're talking 2017, fine, so we'll put that, you know, number
Sean, when,
8.
if and when.
Yeah, right.
If is a big if, I think, to get that successfully converted to a trailhead.
What's the biggest obstacle right now?
Well, I think just cost and the nearness of Colton Trailhead and then Singletree and whether or not it's needed there. So I think that's a good bit of advocacy you guys need to do. If that's a priority, you got to start getting that message out in your work plans and in,
I think for the committee, it is a priority.
I think so.
We consider that
Absolutely.
vision that we have.
And where does that start showing up, Allison? Does a trailhead,
So
is it
on
broken
the
by
map,
your trail plan?
yes, not on the trail plan.
It's not on the trail plan
I
yet.
think I had indicated at some point in one of my
Yep.
emails. Yeah, I don't know.
Allison, would you mind zooming that out to full? Thank you.
Shall we do lights again?
So basically, that trailhead would be somewhere, I think, in here? Is that right?
Yes.
And you have lots of trails. That trailhead would be a great place to, you know, connect these. Right now, there's nothing in there. I have to take my son up behind, was it Key Bank to get on there, which is fine. I don't mind that. But, I mean, having a trailhead, you know, having a north side trailhead where the Lewis people could come and park instead of going all the way down to Colton.
We also feel with the development of Town Center, that it's a good place for a trailhead. All
We're
of
gonna need
those
more parking.
residents will
Yeah.
want to access that way. You know, so we do think
I
it's
think you
valuable.
need to add it to the plan. Get it in here
I
as an
agree.
element.
Yep, so,
So going back, were we saying that we wanted to, let's see, connect number 1, let's see, we've got number 1 in there already. Yeah. We've got, do we have number 4?
Yep.
And then there was a number 9. Number 9 is that one, yes.
Yeah.
But what about number 10? 10's interesting,
Where's, can you point it?
right there. That's the one that goes behind the dam, the reservoir, and kind of brings in that whole section, which is,
Yeah.
I think, interesting.
Well, I think that ties in with our, number 10 ties in with our thoughts that we would have people viewing at the reservoir and, bird watching and doing all of wildlife watching.
And I think that's probably also why I ranked number 3 lower, was because I thought it would tie in with 10 at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're on to number 7. Are we thinking 10 could be number 7?
Or 9.
Or 9?
Yes, 9, which shows us 4.
I would vote for 10, because it should be, that reservoir should be amazing by the time we actually get to it.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Would that be number 8?
That'd be number 7.
I thought number 9 was number 8.
Number 9 was number 7. Trail number 9 was priority 7, yes. So I think we are going to priority 8, yes, number.
Okay, sorry, that was my mistake.
So that's number 10, that's number 8, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, we put 9 as priority 7?
Yes.
Okay, and then number 10 is priority 8.
Which
So
is on
that-
the edge.
And then, do you want to look at now as number 9 would be Shan Shan?
Absolutely.
That then we would pull in
I
the
agree.
Shan Shan property, so we have to.
So establish a Shan Trailhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does what?
That connects into the Mayhofer Trail and connects into the, what are the other trails there? There's 2 trails there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the black line is on this map, but from a naming
You can
purpose.
say that connects into nearby trails.
Right, right.
So number 9 is Shan Shan Trail.
Because right now, there's a road that people have to go through Old Town to get to, and that's kind of the
Exactly.
de facto trailhead, I guess, that no one really knows about. But they have a lot of great historic stuff over there, a lot of plaques and stuff that no one even knows about because it's embedded in Old Town.
Original town, yeah. So connect to new trails, okay. So that's number 9. And then number... Two off. 5 is really down, okay.
Looks like number 15
we wanna turn the
and
lights
number
back on?
17.
Which one is it?
The far left? Yeah, there you go.
Looks like number 15, well, I don't know, I think we're kind of getting down to,
The chaff.
yes. Number 8 ranked relatively high. That's Sagamore.
And number 6, where is 6?
Number 6, that's the one that goes all the way to the bottom one.
Oh, yeah, that one's fantastic.
Yeah, so when we start getting into these outer ones here, we're talking about negotiating with Boulder County, and I don't know if there's been difficulty in the past with trying to do that, or if we foresee any issues with negotiating on those trails, because I think we need more. Number 6 trail, I think there should be more loops in here, to be honest, not just straight out west. There should be more connectors between Trail 6 and the straight out Colton. I don't know if is that the Colton Trail there? Yeah. There should be a loop there, or maybe another loop, connecting. There's just a lot of straight out trails, but again, when you're talking Boulder County, it can be anything at that point, so. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love to. Number 6.
Let's prioritize that next.
I think if we're going to do 6, we should do 14 at the same time. That way we can add more connectivity to that.
Doesn't that go across private property though? 6 and 14? 6, one of those does, doesn't it?
Point out 14.
6 is...
14 is right next to 6.
Boulder coordination.
So we could do 10.
That'd be 10. 10, and maybe 14 would be 11.
11,
6 is 10,
Yeah.
14 is 11.
Yeah.
when we're at
12.
Does this group typically rank this all the way down into the deep and dirty that have no chance of being?
Well, that's what I was wondering. Just say maybe from 12 to whatever's left.
It seems like a futile
18.
exercise to me.
We'll worry about those next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, we could do that. We could definitely say just,
I'm used to 3-year plans, not 5-year plans, so it's just too far out. It's just ridiculous.
I guess one thing to consider in the big scheme of things is the budget. And the budget will be going out to 2020, so it's a 5-year budget. And, but I don't see a problem with what the committee would like to do.
I would just move I would say if we make potentially number 15, the Davidson Mesa connection, if we made that number 12, and then after that,
Okay. I'm good with that.
some of these other things, like even the number 5, which is Richmond access connection from the sidewalk along Colton, that's now town property, so I don't know what's going to end up in there, so I think we should wait till determine what that's going to become, so those can all just sort of
Another asterisk.
rank, yeah, they can
In
just rank.
theory, we could just take the rest of them and add up the way that they've been ranked and rank them, the
Yeah.
rest of them that way.
Yeah, my only caveat would be number 5, just because it's 5, we haven't ranked that, but that's that town property now, so I think it has to be determined what the town's going to put on there higher. So just move that down somewhere in that ranking. The rest of them are all pretty highly ranked anyways, they're just going to fall in order.
What about trail number 13? We didn't like that.
What we're going to go from just up to 12 and then just go
Then the rest would
13 to
just go.
19?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a big bucket.
So,
Yep.
do we have any background knowledge about how or why ProStack might have changed things? Because the number 5 that you're talking about, the Richmond access, they moved all the way up to number 2.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's their new number 2. I don't know why.
I'm not even sure why that is really on there, because I know there's a gravel dirt connector that's there right now. I mean, I run it all the time, it's very sufficient, so I don't really get it.
Maybe they know something we don't.
Maybe.
Well, I do understand that it's been leveled and it's used for parking for one of the events for the Morgul, so maybe there's anticipation with using that for a parking overflow, maybe for Chili Fest or, a community.
But I see the same thing, but that's where my point, that if the town's changing the town hasn't identified what the use of that property is now. So I don't know that putting a hard trail in it, not knowing what the use will be, is worth being a higher priority.
I agree. Yeah,
Did
totally.
they designate hard trail or soft trail?
On theirs, hard.
Yeah, on theirs, it just reads Richmond access, connection from sidewalk along Colton to hard surface trail near Richmond property.
I'm with Tracy, though. I walk that a lot, so.
It's fine.
It's fine,
Yeah.
for the time being.
So I think, do we have a motion to go forward with this? And then we can,
I move that we go forward with this plan and then rank order 13 through 19, just kind of smash together.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So unanimous on that? Okay.
A question,
Yes.
understand that ProStack's plan and OSAC's plan individually will go to the board, and the board will have to arbitrate differences, right? So the question is, do you want to ask to meet with ProStack and the two groups discuss priorities and come up with a joint recommendation to the board?
I think that'd be the smart thing to do, not only for the 5-year trail plan, but also for Town Center, for our future topics, because obviously they have a different prerogative for along the creek
Right.
than we do. So I think that would be very important if we get the same.
I think if you feel that's meritorious, you should put that recommendation forth to the board, and just sort of get the board's blessing on it. I certainly, as a board member, think that having a joint conversation is useful. And I'd like to see how the rest of the board weighs in on that, you know? There may be some...
So you'd like us to put it forth for the board to vote on before we actually met with them?
No. I would ask that, you've just done your priority ranking. I don't frankly know how it agrees or disagrees, but I do know that if it disagrees, somebody's gotta create a Town of Superior 5-year trail plan. That's the board. So, as your next action here, if you, as a collective group, wish to put forth to the board that you meet jointly with ProStack to come up with a joint plan, you would have to make that recommendation to the board. So,
Are we making a recommendation to the board that we'd like their permission to do it, or how do we phrase
yeah,
that?
I think you do, I don't know that permission is exactly the word, but just put forth your desire that you think it would be productive to meet with ProStack unless the board sees any reason not to, or whatever. You know, you can...
So I'd like to make a motion then that the ProStack and OSAC have the opportunity to meet to try and understand each other's rankings and come to a consensus.
Resolve differences.
Come to a consensus on the trail plan.
Anybody want to second that? We have that actually, it's funny, we have that as a discussion item, as we also have to do Boulder County's open space and trail recommendations that are due in August. So we have that as a discussion point to talk about when we rank that. Did we want to meet with them before the August? So we sort of, should we meet with them and do both, you know, our 5-year plan and our Boulder, open space and trails recommendation for BOCO's trails, not Town of Superior trails.
I would like to see how they stack up first, because what if we're like perfectly aligned? I don't know that we will.
We're not.
We're definitely not for the 5-year.
But if we could re-stack them.
So they really didn't change.
What are their top 5 priorities?
Their top 5 are, number 1, that stayed there. Their number 2 is what number 5 was, so that Richmond access. And number 3 stayed the same, number 4 stayed the same, and number 5 stayed the same. Oh no, well, number 5 is now 6, because they moved that 5 down to number 2. That's not confusing enough.
I mean, I'm okay with the meeting, provided we can get this information ahead of time, see where I don't want to have to sit there that night and go, oh, you're
Well, and
right.
also, it doesn't have to be a full...
And also, if we do that, then we can also have the discussion with maybe Boulder County or whatever we need to do next steps. I just don't want, we've done this in the past, it has not been as fruitful a use of time, and maybe it's just because of the way we've laid it out.
Okay.
But I'm certainly open if we can be organized and zip.
And the other question is, since they have open space and trails in their title, and we don't, do they get more weight than we do in how trails are prioritized?
No. One, it doesn't have to be committees of the whole. If there are people in this committee who are more interested in trails and others who are more interested, you can create a group of 3 or whatnot that meet with a group of 3 ProStack trail people. So you have, how many people now? 7 members? They have 7, I think, too. I think they have 2 2 openings, so that's 14 people. That's a pretty large group. So you can do a subgroup, and they can do a subgroup, and report back to the full committees. Typically, you weigh in on open space trails, right? And, they do the interior trails, et cetera. And then there, of course, you have the freedom to comment on each other's as well. So nobody has more influence, when it comes down to the board level, it really comes down to the logic and the comp plan, affordability.
Okay, so I can support that.
Okay. So our Boulder County Open Space and Trails recommendations, do we have that in front of us, Allison, or are we pulling that up? Sorry.
A really hard time finding it. I couldn't find it online, but I can find the cover memo.
And just again, I know from Boulder County's trail things all got pushed for flood mitigation as well, so they didn't get through anything that they had from the September 2013 flooding till now. So.
I don't think there was a report because of that, but I do have I can pull up this cover memo from what was decided upon. Because one thing to note when I get this up is that ProStack and OSAC's number ones were different, but everything else was the same last year.
Okay.
And so we had a 1A and a 1B to kind of.
While we're waiting for that thing, did you bring the? I did, okay. We'll do that later. I just wanted to make sure you had it.
So these were the OSAC recommendations. And then these were the ProStack recommendations. And so this was the staff's final recommendation. So as you see, there's two number ones because the two committees differed on that one point, and everything else remained the same.
Do people feel that there's difference, I mean, this is all the sort of Boulder County space area. Do people feel that we're still looking for these links and that we would just want to recommend, again, what came out here? The single tree.
I can't imagine there's any way we could get a map of these things, is there?
Of the single tree, with like the trails?
Of all of those that it's talking about?
I can look for one.
I think there might be one on our Town of Superior website, maybe, with all the trails. Let me look it up quick.
I can look for one. If not, I can.
He's going to hunt.
Yeah, I mean, it's
If
basically,
you can't find it, don't worry about it.
it's the trails that are, it's connecting these all back here. I mean, when you look at it, it's like, okay, get these two to connect here. It's this space, though they're not marked on it. Sure. Looking at this map.
So there is a trail site on the Superior, Town of Superior site, except now I just crashed, so. Just superiorcolorado.gov/
I could pull it up here also.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, because I just did a Google search on Superior trails.
But isn't this the Boulder County recommendation?
Yes.
Yes.
Parks and trails and open space. Yeah, the maps one.
There you go. Yeah, so I'm not sure which one of those is the best to look at, of those top links. Wow, that's really hard to read.
So we have Parks Rec facilities.
Yeah, I got it.
Town of Superior Trails map, Coal Creek / Rock Creek Trail System map.
Yes.
Colton Trailhead map.
Try the Colton Trailhead map.
Yeah, that should have it. I'm looking at that on right now.
Yeah. So that's,
Oh, wait, that's not what I clicked on.
Did you mean the Coal Creek?
I must have clicked on.
no, because when you're looking at these connections, it's all, I mean, what we had up there is single, connecting Meadowlark to Colton. It really is that sort of back,
So this might be the best one.
yeah. It's really that space behind there, like, so you've got the Colton Trailhead, and it's, see how it goes really far out? And I think we have some social trails that kind of connect some of this, but this was making more official trails, because, right, so there's the single
So
tree.
there's single tree right there.
Yeah, and Meadowlark is,
Is that it right here? Is that what that says?
yeah, Meadowlark Trail.
Yeah, that's Meadowlark.
Connecting that through, and then,
So the proposal was to connect those two?
yeah, to make sure that all of those are, if you can go back to,
So between single tree.
to the Coal Creek Regional, then the David Mason, and then,
Do you want me to minimize so you can look at both?
yeah.
Is this Windows 7?
So that's sort of, yeah, connecting that to the Coal Creek, so the green, right? So connecting that over, then underneath.
Can somebody use their pointer?
Oh, Ken, you have the pointer?
I have it right here.
Oh, you have it.
I got to work. It's not what I want to do wrong.
Dead battery?
Oh, there you go.
All right, so what are we pointing at?
The green.
So it's connecting that Coal Creek Trail through to Singleton, right?
Single tree.
Single tree.
Yep, single tree.
Coal Creek,
Yeah, and then Meadowlark from the, it said the,
Meadowlark
yep,
to,
That's the westernmost point to link with the
It's-
Colton Trail.
The peninsula there.
yeah,
So at the left, the very left side.
Yeah.
There.
yeah, and connect it down.
oh, so we have a loop.
That'd be
Yeah.
nice.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then the Mesa, going under, for the Davidson Mesa, and then, what was 4? So then coming out from the Colton Trailhead to 128, and then improving
Yes.
where it already connects from the trailhead up.
Right.
And the Indiana and McCaslin West to connect.
What number 5 means is that Colton Trailhead that goes west.
Right.
Yeah,
The second thing is all rutted and everything? Okay.
Yeah, it's
just improving,
Yeah.
it's improving it.
And number 6, the committee should note, would change a little bit because it would be Indiana and McCaslin West to connect with the Calmonte Trail, which would connect
To
to
the
Colton
Trail,
Trailhead
yeah.
via roundabout.
Yep.
I say, that looks like a good set of recommendations.
I have no,
Yeah, I don't think I agree. Yeah,
So I make a motion that we accept that as our plan.
Do you have any recommendation as far as number 1A and B? Should those remain the same as well?
so Elaine,
I'm good with it because
well,
they're both important. I mean,
Should we leave them both as number 1s?
yeah.
And keep them equally as important?
Yeah.
Great.
So we had a motion, do we have a second on that motion?
Do we want to think about connecting here in the middle?
Where?
Having a trail, a larger loop, or a medium-sized loop?
Is that possible? They've got all that animal habitat, and they have signs up there that says you can't enter during these months because of
right.
raptor something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do we have a second, Don
The o-
Jill's motion, or?
The only tiny little trail that I would think would be nice was, it's connecting, it's on the Meadowlark, where it inverts right next to the road, right next to McCaslin, lower. There you go. That doesn't actually connect to that trail that we propose to put in there, but we can address that in future years as well.
in that case, I think I'd second Jill's motion.
Okay, all those in favor of keeping the list the same?
Aye.
Okay, got that. All right. Next on our, and then just our, there again, we had the ProStack, so do we have a motion that we would reach out to ProStack and try to meet with them in July then?
Yeah,
To discuss a subcommittee to do that, so we can,
Yeah, let the board weigh in on that, you know.
Okay.
The reason why is we brought it up at the retreat and whatnot, and, you know, the joint meetings.
so Allison, can we add to our minutes to the board then that we're asking for their opinion on a joint committee for ProStack to meet in a subcommittee, ProStack and OSAC to meet as a subcommittee in July timeframe, beginning of August, to discuss these two items?
Currently, I have recommends to the town board that OSAC have the opportunity to meet with ProStack and come to a consensus on the trail plan and the annual Boulder County Open Space and Trail request in July.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right. Discussion item number 5 is the 2016 budget recommendations and develop our initial budget recommendations for 2016, including potential trail additions and outdoor education programs. So in front of us, we have what we did in 2014 for education programs and what we have planned for 2015. That's what we participate in. And I think our budget for that is 10,000? That's what we have for our education project.
That's correct, and also a quick update, which is kind of down at the bottom, but since this item is up now, the booth, Ashley's booth, the contractor, our wildlife ecologist, she counted approximately 42 people on National Trails Day, so if you want to add that to your list. And then for the overall National Trails Day was 83 is what she counted. And the hike, I think it was 12.
I'd caution you not to break that down into too many subgroups, and maybe just keep the 83 National Trails Day. Because I think everybody's interested in the total draw.
Do we have a count on how many of those raffle tickets we have total?
So the raffle tickets, we had 50, and then I estimated about 35 did not
So
fill them out. So
gets us to-
it's about 85 people, I would say.
Awesome.
And then in the 50, I will just say, some came as families, so I don't know that all those people individually get counted, But I would say we had anywhere between 85 and 100 people come through during that sort of 3-hour time period that we were there, 3-hour time period.
My recommendation would be to do the same set of programs next year in 2016, and then make an assessment for 2017 if we have some that are not as successful, because, if you just look at the Coyote hike in February, well, you'd go, well, it wasn't very successful, but it was snowing, it was cold, and the year before we had 40 people for that, so that's a lot, actually. And the same with the bird walk and the Arbor Day booth, it was the weather again.
Yeah, the weather hasn't been as nice this.
No, and so I think we can get a better trend next year. I just don't think we have a good trend.
Yeah.
The only thing that looked like it was a little light last year was the Coyote presentation in September. My guess is there were football games, there were soccer games, there were all the other things that typically happen in September. That might be the only one we might think about, because we already have a bird walk in September.
Yeah, I kind of wish a lot of these programs were on Sundays instead of Saturdays, because there's so many other things, especially kids programs. I mean, we intentionally moved to Sunday for this to get less conflicts, and I think perhaps if we were to move some of these other things to Sundays, we might get better draw. I know I would go.
The interesting thing, and should be in the note category, Clint Folsom, the mayor, announced that they had a cleanup at Superior Elementary at the same time you had National Trails Day, and they had all the Boy Scouts there,
Right, I was
and
gonna
all
say that,
the rugby team.
Yeah.
Well, those are all youth that would have loved to be, so you tried very hard to coordinate. Others need to equally try hard to coordinate, so, because that's a lot, that's probably 75 kids, so.
One thing to also note, the Coyote presentation in 2014 was during the week. It's also during the week this year. I think it's on a Wednesday or Thursday night here, and that might be something the group might want to look at as well.
I think so, too.
I'm looking at Louisville's agenda of all of the activities they do, and the one that I thought was really interesting, but no pressure whatsoever, they have that gentleman, Kevin Trenberth from NCAR, come and speak about climate change. I don't know if that would be something we would want to take up, if that relates to open space, or if that's too touchy of a topic, but they said that he's free, so that would be a bonus with him.
I mean, you're right up against the foothills. I mean, there's like your night sky viewing, Allison. I mean, that was perfect, and I think that would be another great thing, because we're living here, we're in a unique situation here where we live, and the weather and how it's impacted by the
I actually wondered why night sky wasn't part of the OSAC, OSAC educational program.
I just think because Allison took it on herself as a staff member, that's how it just came out as a rec thing.
Oh, it can be put in this.
Yes.
I mean, always be renegade.
I guess from the budget perspective, though, I think we can talk programs at different levels. I think, are we going to ask for more money than the 10,000 than we have in the budget? Or do we think the 10,000 is about reasonable about what we're going to get?
I think 10,000 is reasonable if we think we can get it.
Yeah.
I think it would help cover this, and I like your idea, Tracy, of adding the in-car thing.
Yeah.
You know, like Sean, I feel the same way. And I think most of this we can do in the 10,000, and then as we make our later plans for next year, after we see how some of these turn out, you know, we might take a couple off, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
we might substitute for other programs.
The one I saw in Lewis, I think is the snake guy, which I think, not that I personally want to see the snakes, but I think that would get a lot of interest from
Yeah, Snakes Alive.
kids and teens and everything.
The Center for Snake Conservation helps put that one on, that's pretty cool.
And the Louisville committee or board, whatever they call themselves.
Their board.
Yeah, they mentioned that a lot of this they get for free. Though I think the NCAR would volunteer. They said the Snake Eye volunteers. So I think our budget, we can maintain what we have and keep that flat, and then even reach out and get more of these, and hopefully have people volunteer their time to do these presentations.
And so, okay, so I think if we stay with the 10,000, then the other piece that we had on here to discuss, I think, is including potential trail additions, I think was around the fund, and do we want to recommend that some of the open space fund money could be, are we bumping up against that we're sort of up against the acquisitions that we can do, and then is it time to look at or recommending that certain funds be used for maintenance, or even pushing some of these trails that we just prioritized forward? And put that open on how people feel about
Yeah, I'm
that.
all in favor of that. I want to see that money used any way we can that enhances trails or programming of trails or just utilization of trails. And if we're not using that money, then we should appropriate it to something else.
And I'm more conservative, and I think I'd like to have the money in there in case we can acquire something, and then we've got the big chunk sitting there that we can use immediately.
Right, but we only have 3 parcels at this point, and they're all big, and I don't think $10,000 is going to make a hill of beans.
And I thought you were speaking about taking money from the fund for acquiring and using that.
The $5 million
Trails.
fund.
Yes.
On top of,
Toward doing,
I see.
that was one of the discussion things we've sort of kicked around at various things, and I think that there are, it's just we're at the budget recommendation point, so do we recommend that the board look at that fund? We have in front of us, that we got in the last meeting, the resolution for that. Allison did send us the actual election question. I don't even know if that's something that we would want to recommend to the board or not recommend to the board. So I just wanted to put it out there as a discussion item. We can leave it that, you know, our discussion item is just that we're going to ask for the $10,000 for education. But that was one of the things that has sort of percolated for the last couple of meetings or months, that, you know, that fund and that we only really have those 3 properties left to acquire. And I think your point is well taken, that they'll probably be expensive, so they would eat up on it. Or is it that we also look at maintenance of certain trails or things that the town would want to do in the open space?
Maintenance has its own budget, correct? That does not come out of the open space fund. So be
But
aware.
is that maintenance on trails on open space, or is that maintenance just for trails in town? I'm not suggesting that we use the fund for maintenance
Right.
of things that the town should be handling.
What I'm saying is, if you're talking about routine maintenance, that's covered. If you're talking about outside the routine, have you identified a need that you're recommending in terms of maintenance that needs to be funded?
Well, I wouldn't say maybe maintenance is the wrong word. I'm looking at that we just prioritized and we say we want this trail on McCaslin and it's going to be $100,000. Does the town board look at that and say, well, gee, we could do that tomorrow if we took $100,000 from the open space fund to make a trail on open space property, or not? But I wanted to start those conversations there, you know, as we think about this.
And understand, in your discussion, there are various iterations. You can do what Tracy suggests, by saying the first X million is reserved.
Yep.
And the next X million or X 100,000 or whatever can be used. So you can create a pot for future acquisitions of what we know will be expensive. So
Yeah, I'm certainly not suggesting a spend down of the fund, but I know that we've sort of just prioritized all these trails, and then we say, well, gee, that's estimated at $200,000, and that one's estimated at 56, and this one, and is it time to look at that or make a recommendation to the board about that? And I do like the idea of saying, and I would say, my recommendation or thoughts on that is that, there should always be $3 million in it for acquisitions. I think that we're really talking about,
I think we need more than that.
or $4 million for acquisition. It hovers around $5 million, give or take, right?
The way prices are going up now, I'm concerned we're not just never going to have enough money. That's all. Things are just crazy.
It's level 3, and what are the other two?
There's Zaharas and Buljak.
And I actually think there were a couple other little ones in there on
There's
our
the
list at some point in
Yeah,
time.
there's Turnbolt, and there's one other.
I guess my proposed, have we made any progress with level 3?
Not that I'm aware of.
So just to make sure we're not shooting in the dark, saying let's ensure that we have 4.5 million left, or 4, I mean, we don't really know how much we need to keep in there, so it's hard to say what we should cap that remaining amount at. I feel like we're throwing darts without knowing what we're throwing at.
After your top 3 priorities, we can't look at this one, and if you were to say that's 56.
You have to come to the mic, Sherry.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not suggesting we have to do that, I just wanted to open it for discussion with the group. The public?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you look at the cost of your top 3 priorities, they're actually reasonably nominal, and maybe if you even propose that 50% came out of CIP and 50% out of open space, so that you weren't drawing down too much, but you're actually moving the needle.
CIP is the
Well, general fund is what I
general
would say,
fund,
yeah.
yeah, it's the general fund, so the town paying for it. And we could leave it as is, like I said, and not do it, but I thought that we should at least discuss it. As a potential funding source for some of the things that, some of those trails that we want to create.
I mean, what's going to be the highest value for us? How are we going to increase the utility of the town the most? And at this point, if those 3 that we really want aren't necessarily on the market or even realistic for us to get anytime soon, it probably is more valuable to the community to start getting these trails in faster. I'm in agreement that we should probably start using some of that money, and we can just kind of increase the pace with which we get these trails installed.
And I don't, and I should be clear, I think we would recommend to the town, I think it has to be looked at from these resolutions that were put in play and all of that, but.
Yeah, and I think, I think we have that authority. I mean, based off the way that vote, what we voted on reads, we can definitely use the money that way.
I like Sharon's recommendation of taking the top 3, making a recommendation that half of that come out of the open space fund, which wouldn't be much, it'd be about $73K, and half come from the general fund, and we'll accelerate those trails. The one thing I want to do is always make money, have money for level 3 if it were to come. But we could be sitting here another 5 years.
Exactly.
Still sitting on maybe $6 million because we've invested well or whatever.
How much do we get a year from that tax?
$500,000, right?
Okay. So if we used 70 in 1 year, that's, we're still making.
If you use the sales tax money 1 year.
Yeah.
And left the rest of the fund untouched.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion that we do make that a recommendation to the board based on what Sharon said, 50% from open space, 50% from the general fund. For the first 3 trails. So I'm making that motion.
I would suggest you be careful in your wording. Are you saying the first 3 OSAC?
Yeah.
Yes.
First 3 priorities.
Right.
And just a quick clarification, are all of those trails on open space specifically, or are we going to talk about other trails?
Number 1 is on open space.
Yeah.
Number 2, I think, is on open space.
Priority number 2 is along McCaslin, so
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know if it's on open space, but we feel that it makes the connection to open space, having that sort of,
I mean, there's no sidewalk there, so.
yeah,
It's grass.
And then number 3 is part of, kind of like number 2.
Yes.
yeah, it just constructs that down.
Actually, I might even throw in number 4 because it's all part of that same.
Yes, I would actually, yeah. I was going to say start from north and go south, but that's fine.
Do all
Yeah, I would say all of them. They're all connected.
Because that adds another
All the way down.
30K, so now we're up to 176.
Wait, so are we saying numbers 1 through 5 then, so we can finish out that McCaslin corridor?
1, 2, 3,
5 is really
4.
expensive. And isn't that the one we were thinking about the developer would pay for?
Well,
The part of Rogers property.
it depends on when they developed it. That was the
Yeah.
issue.
All right, so now we can just keep it as 1 through 4.
Yeah, I don't think we would go into the single tree one,
Right.
that's number 5. And that's one we're recommending to Boulder County, so
Right,
we would want
okay.
to see what they were.
And do we think 50% is a fair percentage versus more or less than
I
50%?
think that's reasonable. Just,
I think it's a good starting
yeah,
point.
exactly, that's what I was going to say, Ken.
Yeah, if the board doesn't want to use the money from the general fund, we at least come back and talk about it and say, all right,
Yeah, I think the 50% is good, because I agree. I think we want to have monies available, and I don't think we would want to take on 100%, because we would spend down the
Oh, no,
fund
definitely not.
very quickly, but
How can we know that it will actually get expedited, or that they will just take the money and keep it on the same track that it's going right now, time frame wise? Do we,
They wouldn't remove it from the fund until it's.
yeah, they can't, I think if it's if it gets put on that way from a funding source, it has to,
but you know what I mean? How do we know it's actually going to get done earlier than it would have got done? Is that making any sense?
yeah, no,
Well, Allison would have to help us with that. I mean,
well, for the general fund, isn't that money get allocated on a year, specific on a year basis? So if,
July, is it July?
right, so if we did make this proposal, then we would say this would come out of general fund year, whatever. And
There are steps, right? Because we're presuming your priorities are the priorities approved by the board, right?
Yep.
Right? What if they're not? What if you have your joint meeting? Well, you have, one, if you do have a joint meeting, and jointly you agree to more of a assortment, right? Some sort of compromise position, then there may be some, like, for example, that Richmond tiny thing that was on here, that was a priority of ProStax, that wasn't yours, I think it was very cheap, but anyway, you get my point. It starts,
should we be waiting to make this recommendation until we see what happens between us and ProStack?
Yes.
That way we can see.
I mean, can ProStack block us saying we will put 50% of our,
ProStack has no money.
So they can't stop
so
us
they
from
have
saying.
nothing? Okay.
But who knows? Maybe the reason they have things ranked makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Maybe that would sway us.
And maybe
or-
you can buy into it.
Yeah, I mean, I like our logic quite a bit.
I love our logic. I think it's very logical.
I definitely think we can do that, and this was the start. I don't think when do we have to have our budget recommendations in? I mean, I think we can go forward with the 10,000 for education. This was a separate, this doesn't have to happen. I do think, from an open space, from my perspective on the committee, I'm not looking to make this fund open for town business.
Right.
I'm looking at this as, you know, to accelerate use of the open space. So I'm not certainly at any point recommending that it's just open season on this fund and we could do it for whatever the town wanted. It really was
I do
specifically
think it will
about.
speed up, you know, that whole McCaslin thing. Remember, we spent $1 million or whatever putting in that light and all that, you know, however much money we spent putting in that light so the rich people could cross more safely. And that raised that whole issue of how they get down to the Colton Trailhead and whatnot. And that certainly is a priority of the town, but if there's not money for it, it isn't going to happen quickly. So I do think your ultimate goal of speeding up some of those things will happen. It's just, I think it makes sense to take baby steps, have your joint meeting, et cetera.
And then come back and discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have kind of a general concept and an idea that the five of us have bought into, so.
Yep.
Thank you, Sharon, that was a good thought on that 50-50 split.
Yes. No, that was good. Thank you, guys. So do we have a recommendation for the 10,000 for education? I know we agreed to it.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Jill. Someone second that?
I second that $10,000.
And a vote.
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous. Allison for the notes. Great. Number 6, our COLA.
Question from the community.
Oh, sorry, public, yes.
One last thing. I think last year in that vote, we actually also made the recommendation to hire Ashley again to do the programming for us. So Allison, you think that needs to be included in that?
That's up to the committee.
I make a motion, we include Ashley again.
I second the motion to include Ashley.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
She's
she
good.
was very good.
A vote on that? Aye. So include, that passed unanimously to include Ashley as our education. Thank you. All right, now, number 6, review and discussion of our Superior Town Center Creek, revision of our recommendations. So we put them on here. This is what we had, but we wanted to make sure that we had it wordsmithed correctly, that we feel like this is what we're putting forward to the board, or any changes that people want to add to this. Allison also did send out to us, hopefully folks got a chance to read it, the biology survey. Right. Because we had some questions. The biological opinion, if you want to bring that up. If anybody needs to take a quick look at that again. While we're looking at that map, and these are what we had.
So, good.
Allison, is there any updates from the town center?
The email that I sent talked about that there were stakes.
You probably should be at a mic too, Allison.
Yep.
There were, in the email, I referenced that there were stakes that were outlining the field still on the property that showed the corners of the fields that were left there from the town board's last trip.
So do folks want to take another trek out there?
Yes, I think we should do it ASAP because they're scraping dirt now, and I think they're going to be planning things out very shortly, for including that field, if we don't get this done.
So Allison, can you get a resource again for us to, I don't necessarily mean the biological, but I don't know if we're allowed out there without being escorted.
I can, basically, I think what we need to do is inform the developer that we'll be out there and go together.
Okay.
So, just to make this as quick as we can before things get removed, you just want to talk to the developer and let us know when we can get out there, and we'll just try to work our schedule around that, or it's the easiest way?
I think come up with a couple of options, and
Okay.
then maybe do a doodle poll and see which one.
I think most people from the last time, it was like that 4:30, 5 o'clock timeframe for folks to get back from work, but certainly we can see if there are other options that work.
Makes sense.
I could come up with maybe 3 options and do a poll, and whichever one has the most.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to drive the keyboard for the recommendation updates?
The missing Mike, that's his.
Are there any changes?
I have one.
Okay.
Where we said artificial turf is fundamentally incompatible, I think we should actually make a recommendation. We recommend using grass versus artificial turf because it's fundamentally incompatible with the
I
natural.
have a plastic finger, so it's hard to type.
I agree with that.
Whoever, I don't.
Go for it.
All right, great.
So recommend grass as, all right, so you're going to type it in there, that would be great. I wanted to, I agree, that's a good way of doing it and making it more of a recommendation.
Can we put in there why we recommend trails on both sides of the creek corridor, just to give it more meat, I guess? Which would be for preservation of the creek and for citizens to get maximum enjoyment out of the corridor, something like that.
Artificial turf, which is
Sandy, where does the board generally stand on this topic right now?
Split.
It is split still? Okay.
The topic of the type of turf or the topic of
The overall.
All the packages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tracy, you said recommend trails on both sides of the creek corridor.
To, what did I say, to maintain the creek and ensure maximum enjoyment of citizens?
Okay, so maintain.
Something along that line, feel free to tweak it. I guess it would be to maintain the creek barriers is what you're essentially trying to do, and
So there are other concerns as well, and one of them that I don't think is addressed here, and I'm not sure it should be, but I'll bring it up anyway, is parking. I think that was a big issue with, if they're going to have a 90% size rugby field, that they're going to be bringing these professional teams to use, and they're expecting, I don't know, revenue from this, where are people going to park, and how is that going to impact the environment as well? Are they going to, where's the parking? Where are they going to be putting in parking lots, and where are those parking lots going to be? Are they going to park along the streets, and where are people going to walk and ride their bicycles and things like that?
And you haven't even mentioned the word drop-off.
Right, right. So I don't know if that belongs in here, but that also is an environmental impact in some way.
so I understand it, so you want to make sure people aren't going into the creek area and that they actually have a place to park
They have a
and
place to park.
swiftly get to where they're going without causing damage to the area.
Yeah, parking on the grass or whatever, sidewalks, I don't know.
And walking through all of that area.
Yeah.
Okay, and then recommend, so basically, Sean, recommend parking, or no parking, or?
A parking study, is there such a thing as a parking study? I mean, we have a lighting study there.
Well, I think that's a good thing.
Or
Or
analysis.
traffic flow study, I don't know, because it doesn't exist yet. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing there, so I don't know how you even create a study out of something that is all hypotheticals.
I think we need to make sure we give good reasoning behind that, because if I were a cold person just reading this, like, why the heck is the Open Space Committee telling me about parking?
I'm sure that a parking study is going to be part of the process.
It's not.
Pedestrian and bicycle traffic.
I would be reluctant to keep recommending studies because they're simply probably not going to happen. What you can say is recommends that the town do whatever is possible to minimize negative impacts from parking, whatever your concerns are.
Parking and pedestrian as well as bicycle traffic? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, pedestrian and bicycle. So next to traffic flow, it would be.
Just in parentheses, you could put
Yeah,
pedestrian, bicycle,
bicycle, as well as vehicle,
all modes of transportation, basically.
We're not just talking car.
Yeah, we're not just talking vehicle, we're talking
Vehicle, right?
So can we go back to number one, because I just want to make sure I understand what we have up in number one, because it seems a little confusing to me when I read it outside of here, that the planting should be at a minimum the width of the riparian corridor plus a buffer. What are we trying to recommend, that we have the?
Bushes and a trail in front of the bushes, so there's kind of like in Community Park by the creek, there's bushes, and they got the sidewalk next to it, and then you have the fields. So there's a distinct barrier between.
Okay. Is that clear to other people and just not me, so?
So that none of the riparian corridor is developed and that the barriers exist outside the corridor? That's the way I read it. Is that the intent of it?
I thought so.
I do too.
To be consistent with the way Jill's writing the rest, maybe you should have the first word there be recommends that the riparian corridor be protected. Riparian.
You need an R.
Yep. Be protected, or I guess it's okay with should be.
I actually like taking the should out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Be protected, that is well delineated by a suitable separation. Hardy plantings are suggested to create a buffer to help withstand future flood erosion.
If you would say foot traffic, and remember the impacts of running players and balls moving at fast speeds. Foot traffic and sports impacts or something like that.
And then the planting should be at a minimum the width of the.
Come after erosion.
Yeah, come after erosion, drop the and.
Got it.
And sports impacts, you want a plural there?
Planting should be at a minimum the width of the riparian corridor plus a buffer, okay.
Wait a minute, so are we saying that the plantings are the buffer, or?
That's what I was trying to figure out, is the plantings the buffer or open trails?
With the addition of a buffer such as a sidewalk?
Yeah. Or.
Later down, we have recommend trails on both sides of the creek corridor, so could we just include that in number one, or put them next to each other, or something like that?
Yes.
I have a quick question. On that last one that Patricia has pointed out, plantings should be at minimum the width of the riparian corridor plus a buffer. Does that mean, say, if the width of the corridor is 100 feet, that you're going to go another 100 feet?
Yes.
Is that what we're thinking, or?
I think so,
What
yeah.
you're saying? Oh.
Because I don't know that we would get 200 feet.
No, we definitely won't get that. We want the plantings to be on the outside of the riparian corridor.
Do you want them to be the width of the riparian corridor?
So you're
I don't know, did we want that? I didn't have recollection of that.
So if we go back, I could bring back the biological opinion and we could take a look at that maybe?
When do we have to have this done?
I think, do you care about the exact width, or can you say planting should be substantial enough to?
I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think take that out and get the width out. And then to your point of when do we want, I mean, we're like on our 6th month of this. I feel like we want to get this voted and get it up. Yeah.
Okay, should be substantial enough to protect the riparian
Corridor, yeah.
Yeah. Period.
I agree.
And get rid of all the rest.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Should we say protect and enhance the riparian
I say
corridor?
just protect.
Okay, that's fine. And then we gotta meet a
That's just me,
recommendation.
but,
Yeah. No, that's okay. I want to get the best thing we can get forward to be in front of the board as soon as we can. Design concepts, that the design
Or
concepts.
that's the design, forget
All
concept.
right, that the design should be based on the, yeah, because our feeling has been that a lot of it's been focused on wanting the fields and then looking at the corridor, where we're saying, look at the corridor and then
It should
do
be
your
based on the
design.
creek corridor first, and other considerations such as field design,
Yeah.
afterwards or something like that.
Once you're done with that, can we go back to that first bullet? I think we need to put a reference in there about the biological document.
Not later, that's not the right word, okay. I'm going to leave that for a minute while I'm thinking of the right word.
Yep.
Okay, where, Sean?
So in the first one, at the end of that first bullet, I think we need to say something, because when we're saying should be substantial enough to protect the riparian corridor, what does that mean? What does that mean? We had to have a reference to.
Okay, based on.
Based on that document, whatever that document is. I mean, that's where the specifics are.
Got it.
Yeah, that's where we got, that and our walk with him. Recommends the design should be.
Should it be creek corridor preservation something first?
Based on the preservation and sanctity?
Sure.
We could say above all other considerations.
Yeah, say that above,
And just get rid of the such as.
Yep, and just say, yeah, and leave it there.
Okay?
Of the creek corridor? Sanctity of the,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to make sure that we're all agreed that this is saying what we want it to, our big problem, if you look at the map, is that the corner of the field is reaching in to this wildlife area.
We want to make sure that it's clear to the board that we want to make sure that wildlife area is not impeded by the field. When you read those first two bullets, which I'm pretty sure are the two bullets that really address that,
Yeah.
do you get that when you read those two bullets? Do we need to make this any more clear? I mean, we say it in the second one, but it's not, recommends the design should be based on the preservation and sanctity of the creek corridor above all other considerations. Is that clear enough that, we all know what we're talking about, but if you're someone that's lay to this conversation, or, is that clear enough?
You could make a statement that says
So, we could say
that
such,
the current design impedes on
No?
the area.
it impinges, it's not impedes,
Impetus.
Encroaches.
encroaches, that's a better word.
Yep.
Well,
So I don't know that that's a recommendation, or just, we want to just say our observation, or is that it impinges the current design.
Yeah, I like that.
The current, our observation is, what did you?
Encroaches
Yeah.
on the preservation of the creek corridor.
The current field design encroaches.
There's the current field
okay.
design.
Field is encroaches
On the,
on, why don't you just say where? Encroaches on the creek corridor, particularly in the
It's the specific mouse habitat.
southwest, southeast corner, right? It's the southeast corner of the field.
Yeah.
Northeast.
Southeast.
Southeast.
No, the northeast corner of the field, yes.
It's northeast corner.
The northeast corner of the field.
Top
Yeah.
of it.
That's south towards Denver, right?
so it's the southeast
It depends
corner
if
of
you're
the
talking
creek.
about the field, it's the north,
Yeah, the field, you're talking about the field or the creek?
and the southeast of the creek.
Southeast of the
Southeast
creek.
South of
Yeah,
the east of the creek, or the northwest corner of the
I would say
northeast.
the northeast corner of the field
Field.
encroaches, yeah.
Isn't it the northwest?
No, the west would
Northeast,
be on
because
the
that's north.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I get in reference to the encroachment on the
Yeah, we need to put the Preble mouse in there somewhere.
The only thing I would say about the Preble mouse is they were not, I mean, when you read that study, it's a habitat that they could use, but they were not spotted there.
They were, I saw them, you saw them.
Yeah, we saw them.
We saw them.
Their trappings, but I mean, in that study, the trappings
Yeah.
did not yield them.
But the study does, and the map clearly shows that that is part of the riparian habitat and the creek
Yes.
corridor. So if you look at that map, it clearly overlays onto the corridor.
Can you call out the last recommendation that the board is sending to the developer on parcel 2? Do you have handy access to that?
I could pull it up from the website.
Do we need it, though, to finish this? I guess that's my question.
Because I'm confused about that northeast corner.
Can we continue wordsmithing while we look at it in the fundamental interest of time? In our last 10 minutes.
I'm going to make your life more complicated by looking at that last sentence of the first bullet. Understand that different people coming at this from different perspectives interpret the biological survey, particularly as articulated by that representative, differently. To some, he said, well, you can't have kids play in a built-up part of that design because of certain things, but oh, by the way, if they play anyway, or if balls go in there, or sports players go in there, oh, we can't stop them, so have at it, right? So when you quote that biological impact survey, understand there will be certain people that say, oh, they said there's no problem. So you might be better off being forthright about your interpretation. Are you following me?
Yep.
Could we put something like the biological impact survey, which clearly delineates something about the corridor?
Clearly identifies Preble mouse habitats.
Great.
Would you like me to pull up the map so you could look at the specific?
And I'm okay, if we...
Water quality potential habitat.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm okay if we want to say that members, OSAC members observed the Preble mouse on there. I'm just saying, when I read it, to Sandy's point, in there, it sort of says it's moderate, it's not hot, like, I worry too that someone could, their interpretation of it's that it's not as significant as we feel it is.
Do we want to make sure it was moderate and not low, or any of that other terminology that might have been used? Just
I'm looking at it right now, and it says the area that the field overlaps with is moderate quality potential habitat.
Yes, because I think when you read the study, his recommendation is that the plantings that would be used would actually improve the current habitat that exists. So, from a low, because there's a lot of scrub out there right now, and their recommendation is that as that gets cleaned up, that we actually do plantings that would make it, increase the level of it to a moderate.
Particularly, so what are we trying to say?
That the study designates the riparian corridor barriers, not barriers, borders.
The study designates the riparian corridor. And its potential impact on the mouse.
It's the Preble.
This mouse is not endangered though, correct?
No. Preble?
Yes.
So I think, I don't think people understand what's the big deal about a mouse. So I think we also, if we're going to state the mouse, and what's the importance of the mouse? Sorry.
So do you want to put in there that it is, which is an endangered species?
Well, I don't know what level it is, to be honest.
Do we need to know the level?
So I think a lot of people are going to say, well, the mouse can just move downstream to some other natural area.
So it's been added to the list of endangered and threatened wildlife in the 50 CFRs as a threatened species. So it is on the list of endangered and threatened wildlife as a threatened species.
Threatened, okay.
Okay.
Is there a particular reason why this would have to be completed at today's meeting? Is there any imminent?
I think the direction from the board ultimately was that the new FDP would come out and then everyone would have a chance to have input once that's...
What I'm trying to say is I don't think it's imperative that you finish this tonight by any stretch of the imagination.
My only concern with that, truthfully, is we've sort of gotten stuck in a timing issue, whereas it's come to our, the way the agendas work and the way we have a once-a-month meeting, the board has every 2 weeks, and we have had, in particular on this one, we did not have these done for the last time that you saw it in front of you, and I know that you're, asking, you have recommendations to the developer. That's my major concern with it, that it will be like...
But there is nothing even in the pipeline right now, right? Is there a FDP in the pipeline right now?
No, we were waiting for that.
Right.
And then the board was going to review that and then give opportunities for everyone else to...
So, I respect what you're trying to do, but I'm just trying to take the pressure off of you as well, that it doesn't have to be accomplished
What are
today.
they doing across the street now? What are they grading for? Because it was my impression that they were also grading in the area of that field.
Frankly, I don't know how we can stop that grading. They've got their grading permits, right? If the board adopts some thing eventually in line with what you asked, they're going to have to reestablish all those plantings. I don't know that if you do your tour and you are really concerned that major damage is being done, you've got to immediately sound the red flag and put an for emergency action by the board to intervene, right? I don't know that that's ever been done, but I wouldn't wait for monthly meetings to come about. If you have a red flag, you need to articulate that immediately to the board, right? But that isn't what this is going to accomplish in any event. Solving an immediate dilemma. This, I thought, was being done to have your established recommendations when the next FDP, when the FDP comes forward, right? And there is no FDP right now in the pipeline, and it'll take a while to get into the pipeline. So I'm just telling you, if you wait till next month to fine tune all this, you can certainly work on this via email. But don't feel intense pressure right now to make sure because really you probably could be here to 10 tonight if you did that. So it's up to you.
I think we'll have a better feeling of how immediate this needs to be once we get out there and look at it, hopefully next week, I'm guessing.
So what are you seeing out there, Sean, that's really concerning you?
Well, actually, I was in talking with Clint, what he was saying to me, that had me a little disturbed about it, so.
Okay. Because that last sentence of the first bullet, when there is precedent in this community for not encroaching within a certain number of feet on a riparian corridor. Great lengths were gone through on Autry Park and the creek there, and a certain distance from the center of the creek outward was established. So that wording, what you're struggling with here, mentioning Preble Mouse and all that kind of stuff, might be able to be handled, that we respect the same distance that was established at Autry Park of, if it's 50 feet or 35 or whatever was established. If that accomplishes what you are interested in accomplishing, because there's that precedent.
But is that precedent based off where a creek is, or is that what is designated as the riparian corridor?
Well, it was all done to protect the riparian corridor around the creek, because at one point the dog park fence was going to encroach closer to the creek. And some trustees, and maybe ProStack or NOSAC as well, cried foul and said, no, you can't have that go that close to the creek. You got to pull that back. So that then a great amount of work was going in. How far do you have to pull it back? That was a chain link fence. So that's a little harsher than an edge of a sports field, right? But anyway, there are those precedents that hopefully were put into place for some good reason. That might be helpful here, is all I'm saying.
Could do this. As far as wordsmithing, I could take it and wordsmith it and send it back out to you all.
Okay. The fourth from the bottom, the develop one, would you mind adding next to walk, something like walk and fully enjoy, so it doesn't, whatever you want to add, but,
Sandy, where can we get that information on the Autry Park, where that
I would get it from Allison.
So Allison, if you could, yeah.
I think somebody actually just put that data out, so just check with Patrick and Martin. They may know that right off the top of their heads.
Okay. So do we feel we're at the point then for this, that if we want to look at wordsmithing it more, either at our next meeting or in between the meetings,
I
via
could take
email?
a crack at it just to make it sound more succinct.
Yep. We should also reach out with Mike. He's really good at the wordsmithing as
Yeah.
well.
I like that, Jill, if you just want to do that.
But if
send it out.
if you need to have discussion now, for example, you have an outstanding question, Tracy, on trails on both sides, right? Was that
well, the
ever
trails on both
answered?
sides I thought should just be moved closer to number one, because we talk about barriers and things in number one, and then later we talk about the barrier of trails as well. I have minimal knowledge on that Autry Park thing, but I just remember in some meetings, they talked about going from the center, right, and then certain footage out. And my concern is that the biologist clearly designated the borders of this one, and that wouldn't really work because it's different feet everywhere, and that I think most of our goal is to keep those borders, not to just follow some,
It's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not uniform across the entire, it really juts out at certain places, there's better ideas.
And also, the mice don't go parallel to it as well. They go wherever they want to. Some areas it's more densely and widely populated, and others it's no population. So unfortunately, where the field is where it's densely populated.
In the first bullet, are you considering the buffer zone the suitable separation, or are you seeing riparian, then buffer, and then trail as the suitable separation?
Yeah, that's a good question. What does everyone think?
Riparian buffer than trail.
Yeah. And maybe when Jill wordsmiths it, she can make that clear.
No, buffer is plantings.
Okay.
Buffer plantings.
Yeah.
And then path,
and then-
trail, whatever,
Yeah.
bicycle,
I'll
walking.
wordsmith that. Okay, this is just a note, so you'll send this to me, right?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and then if we wordsmith it, then we can hopefully have it ready and we can actually formalize these recommendations at the next meeting.
And vote on
Yes.
it.
And vote on it.
Yeah.
Yes, because we can wordsmith it via email, but we can only vote on it
Exactly.
at the meeting.
As a matter of fact, you should send it at the end of the meeting, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'm on vacation.
Oh, good for you.
For how long?
Till Wednesday.
Great.
So if that closes number 6, then we're on 7, which is updates and look ahead. So first on our list is Trails Day, an update for Trails Day. Did you have something you wanted to say for that, or did folks just want to?
I think we got numbers already.
Yeah.
We got some great pictures from different folks.
Nice job, Tracy.
Are we going to post those pictures somewhere is the question, on the town website?
You can post any of mine. I bet Sharon probably has some photos too. And Scott's, we just need to put his company on there. He has a lot better shots, obviously,
some
but
beautiful, yeah.
just put his name on there, and he said those were, let me know which ones you want. I'll ask him, he'll send them on over, and then they're free.
I did think, so I did get some feedback from some folks who went last year and then again, went this year, and they thought it wasn't, it was great. It was an improvement from the year before. Like, it went smoother, like the flow of the events. I think the biggest one that we might want to think about for year 3 is moving that wildlife walk to like 8 o'clock and having it go before sort of the other events.
To draw people in.
Draw people in, they can go out with Ashley, and then it's cooler and perhaps come back,
One quick thing to note is that Ashley said that her hiking group was out for approximately 2 hours.
Wow.
So if you were to move it earlier, you might want to think about
On a Sunday.
Yeah, I just don't know, well, that's great. I mean, I guess it was great that those people went for 2 hours, but there was like 12 of them. So I don't know if we're trying to get more to go.
What do you think deterred the people? Because I couldn't determine why they weren't going. I was trying to route
I think
people to
the
go, but-
heat. That's why, the running club mentioned they would prefer to go off earlier than a 9 o'clock run. The heat just gets too much. There's no shade out there.
Right.
There is no,
I went on a hike with my family immediately after everything at the same time there, and my family had no problem. No, we actually went over to the South Boulder Creek Trail. Of course, there was a lot of water on that trail,
Yeah,
so.
and it's got a little more.
I mean, like I said, it was just some feedback that I had gotten from people, so we can definitely look at it, but I think the event was a success and something that we can definitely put on each year.
Yeah, I'd like to, there are 2 things. So the youth council, I don't know, we need to do something to help them out next year, though. I feel like they did sharks and minnows as their one activity. I think they were expecting more kids for some reason, because they had 2 things planned, and they only did the one. And I think, I don't know if there's something else we can do to help them with marketing or what, but
Well, I do
something,
think that-
because their booth, no one came to their booth. They were all there, and no one was at their booth. And maybe we need to say, bull on them too, with what they're doing.
I think one of the things is that the Hot Quest went over for about 35 minutes, but everyone that I talked to enjoyed the information that they got. They felt that, there was a lot of involvement, but I think that was to the detriment of the youth group, because then you had kids that had been sitting for a long time and were like, I just want to go home now, or I'm hot, I want another snack.
Is there any way that we could put Rocky Mountain Search and Rescue and youth group after Hawk Quest next year? Because Hawk Quest is the big draw. And I felt like, or Boulder County Search and Rescue, I'm not sure what he's called, but I felt like his information was great, but the people just didn't come early enough for it. They came for Hawk Quest.
So it's funny, because we moved him before, because last time we had petering off of people too, so we moved him first. So it's just a matter of trying to get those events.
Maybe we could shorten them and keep them on a little closer, like even Ashley's hike. Look, you get 60 minutes.
Well, it honestly could just be an indication, even though that's great information and it's really kind of fits with Trails Day, maybe that's not the thing that we should be presenting next year. Maybe next year, hawks, live animals.
Equestrian event?
That is actually exactly where I was going. The hawks, live animals, that's a big draw. If you can have kids come up, actually touch a horse,
Well, we actually could just have them walk. Well, again, I don't know what the town's liability policy and all that stuff is. I'd like to get that all worked out way ahead of time, though, because...
But live animals, way bigger draw.
Big time.
Yes.
Just like touch a truck.
Well, it might be that we've done that twice, and it's time to back off from that one and put in a different,
Well, you could do a demonstration of a dog that is well-trained enough to be off-leash, because it's coming on command thing, when there
The
is a
only concern
chasing
with that is that they did not like the dogs near the hawks.
And you can't be off leash on that trail.
at all. Oh, okay.
So
$150 fine.
Okay.
One thing that was mentioned at Trails Day was possible health screenings, and
That's right.
maybe you guys might want to discuss that topic.
So I think, why did they want health screens at a trails event?
Just because runners, and we had Dan Kramer there, who's, the running club, and he was mentioning that he had just gone through this thing at some area hospital, cheap, and everybody just perked up and said, well, heck, runners are so health conscious to have some thing here to assess, I don't know, whatever you would assess at the
I will
time.
tell you this, I just saved another life about 3 weeks ago. Now, I'm not exaggerating. This woman that I do Pilates with, let me turn this off. This woman I do Pilates with, I told her about these health screenings, and her husband is like a telemark skier and a super mountain biker and a big runner. And he went in for the heart screening and found out that, plaque is supposed to be, or something's supposed to be 0 to, let's say 50, he was 400.
Oh, wow.
And immediately, they had to do something, so it's all these really healthy people.
Fitness-oriented people, just...
That they don't realize, my husband went out running on
I hear what
Sunday
you're saying.
afternoon, and I'm like, what? It's 82 degrees.
So maybe something that, I just feel like there's so, volunteering for all of those things as a nurse, I feel like there's so many venues that there are already millions of health screenings going on, and that they can,
Plus, a lot of the people that
Go to
come to
those
this are
places.
just passing through. It's like, oh, what are you guys doing today? Oh,
but maybe education on heat stroke, rattlesnake bites, it's why to stay away from prairie dogs because you can get the plague, things
that.
that pertain to open space might be, okay?
Yeah.
So I definitely think the Sunday was the better move.
Yes.
I think we didn't compete as much with other things. We did compete with some things, so we definitely want to look at coordinating a little better next year. And I think, as we plan for next year, we can think about other events to pull in. We do have 2 raffle prizes that we have to pick from, so who wants to do?
One quick question.
Yep.
Did you feel that the brochures on the prairie dog and the rattlesnake and the information was good information that we should continue the brochures?
Yeah, I thought it was good, and the maps were great. People loved the maps.
And I like the little coyotes that she brought. That one dog went nuts. He thought it was a real deal.
Really?
You can pick. All right, so which one are we picking for? Is this
Tracking poles.
Yeah, the polls.
polls?
You want to just put poles on the back of that?
So John Pavel, is that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is polls.
The backpack is Dano Fitch, D-A-V-O Fitch, dfitch09@gmail.com.
Okay. Perfect.
I think from Colorado Springs.
A couple. It's great. They were in like a.
Was yours local, Trish? What? Was yours local or?
I don't,
Was it a pass?
Town resident, yes.
town resident, yes.
So do we want to pick backups just to be on the safe side in case someone from Colorado Springs doesn't come to pick up the backpack?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
Would we
idea.
just mail it to
You
them?
can just get backups just in case.
Would we mail it, or?
That would be.
Do you want winners to be residents?
If they can pick it up within 7 days.
No, we actually did specify, because a lot of people asked, and I told at least 3 or 4 people, you don't have to be a resident to win.
Yeah, no,
No,
we
but you
just
have to be able
asked.
to pick it up yourself, though, within a certain time period.
And I didn't specify that.
Otherwise, I get them all.
Because we don't have mail service.
Do we want to do an alternate in case someone can't pick it up or says they don't want it?
I'll do an alternate on the backpack.
Okay. So Caitlin Sun, she's a town of,
Colleen Callan.
Yeah, Colleen lives here.
alternate for polls.
And
Okay.
then I have everything in my car to get to the bucket, so it's a lot.
There's something
The
about
2
maybe
prizes.
having more.
What I did last year is I just left them at the front desk, like I.
Banners of some type.
Said they'll be at the front desk.
Okay.
I mean, having that
Then
one
you're
banner
going
was
on
great,
vacation.
but you never have too much.
Do you think that draws anything, though?
Or you want me to, I can take these 4, I can send it to you.
I mean, I think it helps at the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need a big hawk banner.
Need a big hawk banner. An owl and an eagle.
That owl was awesome.
So Allison, if we can,
And, oh my gosh, the size of that eagle was crazy.
so Allison, in the notes, if we can, Allison, in the notes, can we recommend, next year we want to look at when we're planning possibly more banners? Just for the National Trails Day event. Just, I don't know that we have to.
Yeah, maybe.
And then last on our updates and look ahead, we have the Jeff and Paige concert coming up on, what's my date on this?
June 26th.
June 26th is Jeff and Paige over at Founders Park. And then 4th of July is coming up, and then I think, Allison, the 4th of July is on here because I think there might be a booth that advisory committees can be in, correct?
Yes, and I just have a little quick blurb to say. So, a new kickball tournament will be sponsored by Superior Youth Leadership Council that will be held from 6 to 10 p.m. on Friday. On Saturday, July 4th, the Superior Mile will start off the day's activities at 7 a.m. The community parade will then follow the race at 8:30 a.m. with the theme of America the Beautiful. Then a pancake breakfast will begin at 9 a.m. at Community Park, which will be followed by the kickball tournament's championship game.
Oh, nice.
So that's a new little facet of
So, important point of clarification, is it a youth or adult kickball tournament?
There are details on the website and the rules and the sign up for teams.
All right.
It's both, yeah.
Are there referees too?
Perhaps the youth council will be referees.
Yeah.
I don't know. Check the rules, check the rules.
But there is an advisory committee table at the 4th of July. Is there going to be a booth?
That is up to the committee.
Or is that something we want to do, or is that something
Is that typical?
I thought we talked about doing a group booth, no? Or individual?
I thought it was, when we talked about it, was groups, that, that it would be information or anything from all of the town's advisory boards.
I'm not sure if it was to be a group booth or a singular booth. I could check on that. And also, you could always flip pancakes.
I'm not going to be here July 4th.
I've got other things to do, so.
And then flip
I might be there.
You were at Arbor Day with a booth, right?
I was at Arbor Day with a booth, as was,
The ProStack usually has a booth, so.
Right.
RCAC and OSAC, I think, participated in
Arbor Day.
What, you had a lot of people show up at the OSAC booth, right? What did we get out of it? A lot of.
So just, people are curious about the trails, people are just curious about things. So I'm just saying if we...
So if we had like the same type of literature that we had at the booth at like Trails, the National Trails Day?
Yeah, exactly, that same kind of information.
That'd be useful.
If people are in town, if someone, I mean, I don't think it needs to be a whole big deal, but I do think it was one of the things that was sort of kicked around at, I think, one of the open houses or something, that it might be opportunities at these town events for some information about the advisory committees. Just being out there, and the opportunity for citizens who can't make the meetings to interact with
You could get
members.
resident
Feedback and everything.
priorities.
That makes
Yes,
sense.
yeah.
And that was actually another thing, I don't know if we want to make that in the notes, but one thing we did not have at our table that was asked about was our actual 5-year trail plan.
Yes.
And wanting to know what's going to happen. So that would be a great thing to have at our booth next year.
Yep. And that's what we had, so if there's nothing else that people want to discuss, we can adjourn.
Just one last quick note, Jeff and Paige playing at Founder's Park on Friday, June 26th, from 6 to 7.
We, good.
Did you have something?
All right, and we take you to Old Chicago?
Oh, wait, 1 minute.
Just one more thing before we adjourn. On our work plan for first and second quarter, there are a couple of things that we apparently didn't hit on. Begin discussions with appropriate entities regarding potential trail links to Highway 128. And then I think we touched on work collaboratively with ProStack. And then revisit previously identified open space acquisition priorities in conjunction with open space priorities for Boulder County.
Can we look at that second one at our next meeting? Is that a possibility?
We could just have this as an agenda topic at our next meeting. Let us spend 15, 20 minutes on it, just saying, okay, these are things we haven't visited yet, what do we need to do? Make plan going forward.
Yeah, either they...
Just so we're 100%.
Great. Yep. Can we add the things that are outstanding to our next agenda for our next meeting?
From the work plan.
From the work plan, the ones that aren't...
Q1 and Q2.
I think we did identify the Boulder County request. Didn't we say to have that remain the same today?
Yeah. So that one gets checked off.
Is that the same?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we can just look at that.
It says,
And I thought we identified the same 3 properties and then the same list of trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just open space acquisition, and what we voted on was an acquisition.
No, but we did identify that it's Zaharis,
Yes, we did. That's
Bojack,
the
and...
123.
Yeah.
113.
We know our I don't know if this is what it's meaning, but it seems like we know our top 3 priorities, but are there other things that we need to keep on our radar and look into and be investigating? Kind of what it seems like it says, but I'm not sure.
Let's just bring this list for the next one, and we'll just go through it. What's our point?
Just look at whatever's outstanding on it for the next agenda item. Great, we are adjourned.
Yay.
Do we have the thingy?
For anyone who wants, we're taking Sharon to Old Chicago.
I'm going.
I'll be there.
Tracy? All right. Allison, you're coming, right?
I would love to, but.
Well, you're on vacation. She's on vacation.
I'm on vacation. Yes, I can email it right now. And my kiddos are at my outdoor movies and at CSU and all over the place.
That's CSU too? Oh
My daughter is at a summer camp, Colorado Honor Band campus.
Wow.
Are you going there for vacation or is it a staycation?
My family's coming.
Oh.
My baby sister.
So who's gonna, so if you're on vacation, are you really gonna set up this, going across the street, or is somebody else setting that up because you're on vacation?
Going across the street.
To the field.
So you're going to shoot an
Because we
email
were
to Patrick
hoping to do that within like,
the next week
as
or so?
quick as we can.
I can send an email.
Okay.
Okay.
We just,
Yeah, just add Patrick to it and he can, we'll see you.
Jill, have a great holiday, Allison.
Jill. Email really quickly.
You know what, for some reason, I'm writing
Everything turned off?
I don't know. Are we still on TV?
Yes, till 9 o'clock.
So, wow.
underscore
Yeah.
Interesting.
Kenny, KENNEY, at msn.com.
And I don't know what happens if you go over, right? Somebody needs to put that, Allison, can you put that big knife away? Because I don't know where it goes or tell me.
Did I miss the cake or something?
No, we're bringing it with us, I
It's
guess.
going to be from boardroom at superior.gov.
Got it.
And it's traffic.
Awesome.
Yay! Have a fun time, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, traffic court.
Thank you. You guys did a great job tonight.
Thank
We
you.
did.
Yes.
We're way over time.
Well, except for that.
We're gonna, you know what, we're almost done with all the hard work.
Hey, we were thinking Old Chicago the entire time. Like, oh, we gotta get going.
We gotta get Sharon.
That's right. So we have a cake and stuff?
Yeah,
Awesome.
just from,
Thank you, Allison. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you so much. Have a nice night.